Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic medium. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have a very special guest. I am Mary with Earth and Star Wellness. If you're not familiar with her, get ready for some really important information that's going to help you. Seriously, this is going to be for you. So if you're listening, this is dialed in just for you. And thank you so much, Mary, for joining us. How are you today?
I'm lovely. Thank you so much for having me back. You are like my favorite person to get with and do collabs or to do the conferences with. So it's always an honor and a blessing when I get to be in your space and spend this time with you guys.
Thank you so much, Mary. Mary is a shaman. If you guys don't know, Mary is the jack of all spiritual trades, in my opinion. Like this girl can like whip out her Swiss Army spiritual knife and help you. So she does classes, she does events, and she does healings. And she's going to be one of my speakers at my Connect to Empower conference, the third annual. She's been with me all 3 times. Boy, have we done some amazing things together there. It's going to be in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's going to be in November. And our theme is follow your path and light the way for others. And we're going to have 6 psychics there, all teaching you over 3 days. Our goal is to help you come and transform your life. And I will say that we've seen it. Mary and I have seen it. I have seen Mary transform lives. I've actually seen Mary transform my life. And I've brought in some other important psychics too. So check it out on my website, susanlynnmedium.com. Information down in the description. And you can learn more about Mary at earthandstarwellness.com. She also has a YouTube channel. And we're here to help you. That's what this video is about, right? So let's do it, Mary. You wanted to talk about rites of passage, I think. Tell us about that.
Good. I've been working on putting together my my medicine wheel course. I already have one medicine wheel course that I teach. It's a 12-month course, and then I have an advanced level, which is a 13-lesson course. But I'm trying to put together one that's 3 medicine wheels. One that's about the physical, and that's your wheel of life. One that's about the emotional, and your healing journey, and then one that's about the transcendental, which is actually what I taught at your conference last year, Susan. I did like all of that in an hour. But now I'm putting together the full course, like along with the explanations and the journey work associated with it and the healing work associated with it. But in the middle of all of this, what started coming up are your rites of passage, the stages of your life. And a teacher, when they're coming up with new material, they're only really capable of teaching something that they know, not something they've been taught. You can't just regurgitate something that you've heard somewhere and expect it to hit home and make a difference. It's something that you are, something you've been through, and those are the things that you teach. So when I'm putting together these stages of life and what the rites of passages are, I'm sitting here going, well, what were my stages of life? What rites of passage did I go through? And I don't, probably a few of you guys out there can resonate with this. I didn't have a mom growing up. My mom died when I was 3. And I was raised by my dad. I did have a stepmom at one point, and that's a whole other story we're not going to get into. It didn't last. But what I missed growing up was sisterhood, motherhood, being surrounded by feminine energy. I was surrounded by masculine energy. Even the women in my life had masculine energy. They weren't nurturing. They weren't the type of people to hold you and tell you you're doing well. And it wasn't until I got older that I was a mom, that I realized I was missing that. I didn't even know you don't know you're missing something if you've never had it, But the first year after I had my first child, I was doing the regurgitation thing, right? I was raising him the way that my dad raised me, or the way that my stepmom or my grandmother raised me. And after the first year, I was like, you know what? This isn't working for me. and it's definitely not working for my child. What is motherhood? And now I have 3 youngins, and I think I know what it is. It's just love. It's loving them more than anything else. That's what love is. It's wanting more than yourself. It's loving in a way that makes them proud of who they are. It's loving other people in a way that they know it's okay to love themselves too.
Wow.
Yes. And that's what got me rolling on the stages of life, because the first stage of life I came to is birth. Mm. Birth is a rite of passage. All souls should be celebrated at their birth. You get to have this is your literal life, your literal entrance into life. And how many of us were not celebrated at our birth, or whose parents didn't want us or couldn't afford us, or things like that? Like, this is a celebration. And so that kind of started the ball rolling on the rest of the rites of passage and how we can heal the places where we felt we didn't get those clear and defined rites of passage as we went along. That's the first one. So when you're talking about childhood as that first stage of life, this is more than just was I celebrated at my birth. This was also, was I safe as a child? Was I allowed to be innocent as a child? Or was I expected or introduced to things that I shouldn't have been introduced to at that age? This is, was I able to feel loved? Was I able to explore my body and what it's capable of without guilt and shame and excessive discipline? There's a whole lot that goes into that first stage of life that creates our root system and that stability. And when we talk about our root, the entire thing is safety. You know, a lot of the time people think that more their sacral space is safety because your adrenals live there, but that's where you feel safe in relationships. Your root space is the foundation upon which everything else is built. So it has to be steady and secure, and it has to be that firm foundation to hold the other chakras. And there are 3 pillars that safety space is built on: health, love, and abundance. So that love one is the one that I was coming into around birth, and that rite of passage for my children, filling that love meter over and over and over again. There's also the health, because to live a steady, stable life, we want health. We want to live well. And I think that health and living well, and I'd like to know your opinion of this as well, health is more than just about, I need to change my body. I think it's, I need to change my body if I'm capable of changing my body. And if I'm not capable of changing my body, how can I change my perspective and my attitude so that I can still love the body I'm in and live a happy life? And I know that's a hard one for some people, I think, which is why I said, what's your opinion of this, Susan?
No, I totally agree. It's honoring, you know what I mean? It's honoring. You know, my cells need this food. My body needs this thing. I think it is perspective a lot. You know, the guides were just showing me, you would go outside. If it was cold, you would say, oh, I want to get a jacket. Right? You're taking care of your physical body by putting on a jacket, putting on sunscreen, wearing a hat, whatever. And food is another way to take care of our body, but we don't think of it like that, right? We don't have that perspective. But I think it's interesting that you're talking about the root chakra and you're saying that health it's that survival, right? Like it's that primal survival energy. And it's interesting. I've never thought about health being, you know, impacted by our survival, by our very, you know, birthing into this world, right? That's fascinating.
It is. And that really kind of ties into a lot of things, because when you have the perspective that life isn't for you, or that life is stressful, or that life is unsafe, that actually can inflame your body even more. So we can live with diseases that we maybe didn't create purposely, and we can live well with those diseases as long as we are still caring for ourselves, being gentle with ourselves, resting when we need to rest, having the proper nutrition, and not letting ourselves get so stressed and negative, because those are the things that inflame around. And I even see that a lot with my clients who have things like the autoimmune disorders and lupus and things like that, is when they're stressed or in grief or upset, they have a flare, and they need help with their nervous system to calm that and bring that back down, and then their life can be well again. It's about being able to balance the emotions, not control. I don't like the word control emotions, because we're supposed to feel them and let them flow through. But I also think that we don't need to allow negative thoughts to get stuck in that emotion that causes that flare. I feel like there's something else. Hold on, my guides are whispering something. I don't want to talk about that. Okay, so something, guide said it. You understand.
I understand. You're arguing with my guides the way I argue with, you're arguing with yours the way I argue with mine. So I just like, I've got to follow. Yeah, go ahead.
No, they want me to insert something in health around sexuality.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
that space, because there's something there around being able to express emotionally without guilt and shame within your body and your sexuality as well. Because that suppression can also lead to a state of disease or a state of not living well. If we want to live well, we have to also be proud of our sexuality and who we are and how we perceive ourselves in that particular space. They're like, okay, cool, we can move on now. Yes. They just want
because there's somebody that needed to hear that, right? Repression in general, when you're repressing something, you're controlling something. I mean, that's probably the wrong way to work with the energy. It's more about celebrating. That's kind of where we were with that, celebrating those milestones, those important things. Very cool. So that's interesting that you went to the root chakra. That I think that's so important right now, right? Like I think a lot of our root chakras are pretty activated right now.
Because the whole world wants to know, am I safe? Am I safe right now? Are we safe? And these are the things that we're having to touch on in order to bring that realization back to ourselves. Abundance is the third pillar that holds up that root chakra. And I think that I really feel like abundance, I don't know why, this is just something coming through. I really feel like abundance has something to do with our state right now, our socioeconomic state, our political state. For whatever reason, like abundance is that meter, it's the abundant meter. It's not the health meter. It's not the love meter that the United States is going through right now. It's the abundance meter. I'm not sure why. Like, I'm just getting this information right now. If we think about abundance, the first thing we think is money, right? I need money to live. Yeah, we do. We need money to live. And we know that everything's super expensive right now. Housing is crazy right now. But I'm also hearing that also, and I'm not sure why it wouldn't be in the love space, but this is our abundance of everything we need to live, and it has nothing to do with money or food. Everything that we need to live, the universe has provided for us. Everything we need to live is through interconnection, because we are part of nature. We're interconnected with the earth and the trees and the birds and the plant. We're interconnected. That's everything coming out from that heart space. And what we are forgetting right now is that we are all interconnected, and that's bringing our abundance meter down, flat, deadline, done, because we have to have that interconnectedness and that memory that remembrance inside of ourselves that we are all together in this. There's a lot to unpack with that one.
There's a lot to unpack with that because it's so interdependent, right? We're interdependent. You said it. We're interdependent on the sun shining to grow our crops, the rain to grow our crops, the soil to be fertile, for the people who can gather the crops, and then interdependent on your community, right? Your community as a whole. And I think maybe just subconsciously we've decided to be so independent that we've gotten disconnected from all of these things, right? And we're kind of like in the desert by ourselves. And then that triggers the safety. That triggers that root chakra. What am I going to do? I'm by myself. Who's going to help me? Who's, you know what I mean? And I just think that's triggering all of that.
Absolutely. And I am so excited for what I'm teaching at your event.
I mean, it's called Connect to Empower. No, for a reason.
Exactly. And it's going to explain what you were just saying. Like,
Oh, wow.
You know, love of quantum physics. Sneak peek. I have a love of quantum physics, and I'm breaking it down to this is an atom, in case you're wondering. And I'm breaking it down in the first section to the atom. We're going all the way to the atom to figure out where separation and the love of power comes from at your event, at Susan's event.
Wow. That's going to be awesome. That's gonna be life-changing. This is what I'm saying. These things, we're ready. I also think the reason she's talking about this is because we're ready for this. We can no longer, or we don't want to choose to be in this fight or flight survival mode anymore. Where our adrenals are maxed, we're maxed. We're like, uncle, what do I have to do? Which takes all the way back to the very first thing she said, a rite of passage. What if this little speck of time and space that we're going through right now, whether you're at the event, it doesn't matter, where you are right now, is your rite of passage? How can you see what's affecting you internally, externally, as a rite of passage? And then I would ask Mary, if that is the case, like, okay, Susan, I'm barely holding on. I'm going to go with you for a minute and think that I am in a rite of passage right now in my life. How does a person birth the new version of them in the middle of everything that we hold sacred in our root chakra kind of dissolving around us? Do you have any advice for people for that?
Let it happen. That's what I'm saying. You cannot be the mother and the baby.
What can you do, right?
Like, you can't be the birther and the birthee at the same time, right? So if you're being birthed as someone new, just let it happen, because that's the journey. If whatever is happening to each individual person, it's different. You know, some people are learning about their personal ethics. Some people are learning that they have a voice and they can speak out. Some people are learning that they need to find peace above all else and what that means to them. So everyone's doing something different while there's this pressure happening around us, and allowing yourself to simply learn, because that's what a journey is. It's about learning who you are and who you want to be and who you're becoming, and not having to force yourself to be that person, but just becoming that person as you go through the process. So as I go through this process, I'm learning a whole lot about me and about my connections and about what I'm comfortable speaking and the things that other people are speaking around me, and whether or not they're going to be allowed to speak those things around me anymore. You know, there's a lot of things that we're all learning about ourselves in this journey. And the key to that is relaxing into it and saying, as long as I'm not in fear, which is that root space, right? As long as I can not be in fear, I can allow myself to go through this process and become someone new. Because that's the scariest part, is who am I going to be after this is done? What are things going to look like after? What is the world going to be? Who am I going to be after this? And this is where we have to have faith. This is where we have to trust ourselves and trust our higher selves that there is a plan, that things are working out the way that they're meant to for all of our greater good. And that doesn't mean that we're not doing anything about it, because that's how we're growing, is by doing something that we feel comfortable doing, by empowering ourselves, right? So there's something to this process that's just different for everybody. And getting out of fear doesn't look like changing your mind about what's happening around you. Getting out of fear simply is a choice. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a personal story. Can I tell you a personal story?
Yes, of course.
So one of my friends texted me this morning because she's having some huge issues with somebody who really is bullying her. But her text this morning, she's also Aquarius, so she doesn't always mean exactly what she says. But she texted me this morning, and I pull it up, and she says, "How can I hex somebody without it coming back on me?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't do hexes. But immediately I had an answer in my mind, right? And so I said, hold on, I'm sending a voice note. Clink. And I'm sending an 8-minute voice note to her. Next thing I know, not about hexing somebody, but it was like, I guess you would call it a binding ritual. But what it was she has the ability and the power to protect her space. But if she protects her space with an energy of vengeance, revenge, hate, anger, it's going to crash back in on her, right? Which is the hex. If she protects her space with love for her family, love for her home, love for her children, love for the unity that they are creating there, love for the future that they're going to have as they grow and flourish there, the only thing that could ever come back to her is love. Mm-hmm. It's really just all about getting out of the fear. We're accomplishing the same thing, but with a different energy. And that's what's going to make the biggest difference.
I love that. And so one way that I could do this, that we could all do this, is if you're feeling fear around the situation in our state, our country, whatever, and we already talked about the interconnectedness and how that's important. And this, I really feel like this is our lesson right now. Our lesson is community. And the guides have said, if you want a shortcut out of this, get more community. So then doubling down on what Mary is saying, I feel like you could express love, but let's take it one step further. She mentioned action. You're taking action. You're becoming this new person because maybe you're not the kind of person who would volunteer normally or protest normally. But if you do that out of a sense of love, I'm protesting because I love my community, right? But I think that this is one way you can step out of fear, is taking action. And so I would suggest maybe writing more letters to electeds, or maybe getting out of the house and looking for that community, joining that local community, or even volunteering. If you want an express lane straight out of fear, go help someone, go deliver Meals on Wheels, or go work at the food bank, or go sort clothes at the shelter. That will 100% align you with love. And then you're kind of untouchable because you're doing the work that your soul wants, and you can't be afraid. I mean, you can have a little bit of fear, like, oh, I see these people and they need so much. But then you switch into, I'm here to help them. These people need so much, and look at all the volunteers who are here to help them. Again, it's about perspective, which Mary said. It's a choice. It's really a choice and perspective.
I think that we're going to change the words acts of service to acts of love.
Acts of love.
That's exactly what we're talking about. That's going to change everything. And it's not even being fearful for them. It's being in grief for them, which is love.
There you go.
It's the same thing, because like even bringing it back to family or rites of passage, when I was talking about love for children, you don't just love your children and then not do anything about it. Like you don't just sit in love, right? You like feed them, you clothe them, you bathe them, you get them to school, you make sure that they're safe, that they have a proper education and a roof over their heads to the best of your ability. Like, these are acts of love. So love is to be expressed in order to make change. It's not meant to be kept, which I think is also a good definition of love. I think love is your ability to take action and express something that creates beauty and something to flourish in somebody else in any way that you're capable of.
Wow, I love that. It's so true, right? If you're just, it's one thing to have love in your heart and love in your mind, right? And then it just goes to another level when you take action on it and you tell somebody, I love you, or you do have an act of love. Then it becomes real in our physical world. There's a rite of passage from that as well, right? Like, so that's just brilliant. It's truly brilliant. I really think that if people act on some of the things we talked about today, they're going to feel better and they're going to have that rite of passage easier. And I like what you said about you can't be the baby and the mama all at the same time, right? So that is confusing to me sometimes. Like, I know I'm birthing this new me, but yet I'm me, and which am I? And I think that's just an interesting thing that you pointed out. I think it helps to have that perspective as well.
I have an answer for that.
Good, thank you.
That will help you, because you're right. You are rites of passage again, maiden, mother, crone, right? You are all of these things, but you're not all of these things in the 3D at one time. Break that apart into Susan, the human, Susan's higher self, Susan's spirit right now. Because if Susan needs to be birthed into someone new right this second, you're going to have to surrender something, some form of that, in order to let that process happen. So when you're in flow, you're surrendering that perspective to Susan's higher self. And then your 6th-dimensional self is helping you birth your new 3rd-dimensional self. So break that into the 3, 6, 9 here, like this triangle. Does that make sense? Does that make sense at all? Just breaking it apart.
It makes sense, and I can make it make sense in a different way. I love the way you said the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And what is that? How does that equal for men? What does that mean for men?
That's a very good question.
You don't have an answer for it. It could be anyway, so we need to work on that, right? But so the apprentice, it's sort of like the apprentice and the I don't know. I want to come up with medieval names. Like they want to talk about a bard. And I'm like, I don't think people are going to understand what that means. So anyway, but let's stay with women for a second. The maiden, the mother, and the crone. Because you're saying 3rd, 6th dimension, and some people are going to get that, but some people are not. Like, so what I would suggest is sometimes you need to, in this situation, I need crone energy. Like I need to be the wise, old, wizened woman. Like that's the archetype that I want to use right now. Or I'm in this situation, I really need to be the mother, even if I've never had kids. I'm needing that mother energy, right? So you can bring these different archetypes together and use them. It's all fluid is what Mary's trying to say, right? Like you can bring these energies in from different dimensions or even just different archetypal energies and plug them in and utilize that energy at that time.
And you nailed it when you said that, because it's regardless of the feminine or masculine use of the words, it's basically the childhood or your right to innocence, your inner child. It's your adult,
right?
Which in this particular instance, as mother, is your right to creation, to manifestation, right, to building things, or the crone, which is your right to wisdom, your right to love action, because that wise person, they're supposed to take on a role in society that lifts them up, where they can now give their wisdom to everyone else. Because like all of these rites of passage, there's your birth, there's puberty, adulthood, During adulthood, sometimes we go through marriage and the parent, being the parent. And we do that in other ways, like we just talked about with manifestation and creation. But then you have your rite of eldership, being wise. And then death is also a rite of passage.
That's also a rite of passage, yeah.
And those are the 7 passage.
And, you know, your point about disconnection is so important, because what she just described is connecting all these archetypal energies back to you, and realizing that even if you're, you know, 20, you can bring the wise energy in, because that's what you need at that moment, right? So I think that that's kind of the, you mentioned something before we started recording called the death of ego, the death of who you were, the death of your personality, right? Like, this is something that happens when you graduate high school, right? This is something when you get a driver's license, when you have a kid, when you get that first job. There's all these rites of passages. You're not the person you were. You're just not. You've gone through a doorway, right? But what's also important is connecting it all, not leaving it behind. Not, I think that's something that brings up the fear, right? Like, I'm not the person I was. I'll never be the person I was. I'll never be 18 again, whatever, all those things, right? But in reality, we are all those things, and we have access to all those things, and we have access to all of the people and all of the interconnectivity. That's our power. That's going forward. That's what we're learning right now, I feel like.
You're such a smart lady. Yes.
I'm channeling. If you ask me in a minute, I'm going to be like, what's for lunch?
Right. You know, the child only has the perspective of being the child. But if they are capable of letting themselves be birthed into the adolescent and so on and so forth, then they end up with all of the reason they have that wisdom is because they've lived through all of these other things. That's exactly right. That's the whole point of going through all of these rites of passage. And I feel like men have it a little harder than women as far as rites of passage go, just because women have natural rites of passage that they go through as their bodies develop. Whereas men don't have those same clear-cut lines. And, you know, there are a lot of traditional cultures where they have men go through certain rites of passage, where they go through vision quests or sweat lodge or something to like mark the time that they're changing. But we don't really have that very much in our society right now, even for the women, outside of maybe a sweet 16 party or something, if people even do those. So it's hard for sometimes adults to know, young adults to know outside of their own desires, oh, I'm supposed to be an adult now, you know, or for a kid to know, oh, I'm supposed to be an adolescent now. You know, there's those moments in time where they are supposed to be surrounded, where they're supposed to have people around them cheering for them, loving them, clapping for them, making them proud of moving forward. And I think because we don't always have that, we don't always know that it's okay to move forward. We're still kind of clinging to what's familiar and to what feels safe because it's familiar, instead of celebrating every single time we change, every single time that we move forward in life the way we should.
That is powerful, because what you just described is people, I think a lot of people, we make that big leap, but then we do it kind of cautiously. We don't do it with our whole, because we don't have the community. We don't have the village. You know, we don't have that demarcation of, you did it. So I think we don't give ourselves credit, and then we don't live in that space. We don't live in that new space, in that growth. We just never keep growing. We don't accept it. It's so interesting. This is such an interesting topic. It's almost like, without the indigenous or you know, the way we used to do it, now society has said, you're going to graduate high school, that's your rite of passage. You're going to get a job, that's your rite of passage. You're going to get a degree, that's your rite of passage. You're going to have a kid. They've given us this sort of fake, you know, their best version of how they want us to move forward in our lives. And I think this whole time is about dismantling that, because it doesn't feel right to us. And then we're going to figure out our own versions of these new rites of passage. It's very powerful, honestly.
Absolutely. Like, what about the people who don't want to have kids or who can't have kids? And then do they never get that rite of passage?
Right.
And we're kind of dismantling the things that society built around us versus the rights that want to come from us. And there was a vision that kind of came forth while you were talking, and it's that we don't always have to have the mothers or the wise people. What did you say? The wizened people. We don't always have to have that community there to be the ones cheering us on, although that'd be nice here in our human form. Our guides are doing that.
That's
Our
true.
ancestors are doing that.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, when we go through these ego deaths, when we're like in that space of, I don't know who I am anymore, but I'm going to allow myself to just flow with it and see who I become. That's when your ancestors are back there going, hell yeah, do it. Yay. Like they're back there like cheering you on and pounding their drums and sending their heartbeat to you beneath the earth under your home. Like everyone's so excited and they're surrounding you and cheering you on. And if we're not connected to that, we don't always know that that's happening, but it is. So there's always these stages, there's always these cycles, and just being gentle with yourself. Because I'm going to be honest, I'm going to tell another personal story, and it's about you, Susan.
Oh, no.
Guys, listen, after the last show that I did with Susan, we turn off the recording and she goes, the word identity crisis is coming to my brain. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize I was having an identity crisis. And I wasn't until later that night. And in the middle of the night,
Sorry.
I ended up having an identity.
That's why you don't want to be friends with psychics, because we're just like, guess what? Like, oh my God.
Like the guides are saying. And I was like, what? So in the middle of the night, all of a sudden, like everything was fine. And then all of a sudden in the middle of the night, it's almost like I'm out of my body and I'm hearing like, what am I doing? What should I be doing? Like, why do I care? I'm going to quit everything. Like I was ready to and I don't even know why. Like it just happened. Like I was like, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing. I'm going to quit everything. And then I think I even reached back out to you a day or two later. It was like, bruh.
Did you? Oh no.
But it shifted something. I don't know what it shifted. I was just in the middle of a portal. Like it was just happening. I just had to trust my mother, that this is what we're doing now. I'm being birthed now. And that everything leading up to this point was simply nurturing me and growing me so that now I'm ready to be birthed as this thing. And, within a few weeks, I got some new footing, even though it felt a little unstable. And a few months later, I was like, I'm here. We're cool. I know I'm gone. I know what I'm doing. I don't know that indefinitely because I know I'm going to die again. I know this is going to keep happening. And when you're in quick growth, which I think a lot of us are right now, we're all in very quick growth. Time is accelerated.
Yes.
You could have an ego death a month if you needed to. And so every single time you guys are laying there saying, I don't know who I am or what I'm doing, I want to quit, just relax. Just go to sleep, drink some herbal tea, relax, because in 3 days you'll feel better and you can realize that you're someone new now and that all of your ancestors were in that room with you cheering you on, because that's exactly what's happening, even though we don't really see that in the moment.
I agree, and I've experienced all my ancestors cheer me on. It's an amazing thing, right? Like it's in your imagination, but they're just like so happy, right? One of them was a journey that I did with Mary, and that was a very powerful moment for me where I walked through a door and I had another rite of passage of awareness, right? So I think the fear just slows you down. It's like it just slows you down. It's not helpful. So I think if you can just catch that fear and say, okay, I acknowledge I'm having fear. I'm gonna mother myself. I'm gonna be like, okay, what are you fearful about? So I don't think Mary or either one of us wanted you to say, don't be afraid. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, let's talk to ourselves. Why am I afraid? How is this showing up in my body? Where do I feel it in my body? and sit with it and honor it. The thing you want to do is honor all of your emotions, because once you do that, they're kind of like, oh, okay. And then everybody, it's like when you put the Band-Aid on and it's like, oh, it's better. You know what I mean? Like, why? You don't know, but it feels better. So just honoring that is going to release it and allow, like she's saying, relax, honor it, and just be okay with it. It's okay that we're fearful. What's not okay is when we stay in the fear and we magnify the fear and we let it control us. That's where you start to have you block your blessings, you block your abundance, all those things down in that root chakra start getting clogged up.
Yeah, that's when you're creating, like, you don't want to take action in fear. Love action, acts of service, love action. But you have to honor how you feel, because that brings awareness to how you feel first. Otherwise, you're suppressing it if you don't allow that feeling to happen. And then it's calling on your mother, calling on your higher self, calling on your ancestors. Sit with me with this for a while and let's just be present. And you'll find that there are energies around you that are supporting you. In fact, this is something that I personally love about empaths, at least aware empaths, is that we have the empathic gift as a gift, and it's not a selfish gift. People think that being an empath is like this constant struggle of having to separate your energy from other people's energy because it's just for you to be able to feel things in a sensitive way. It's not. The empathic gift is created of love so that you can see somebody else having a burden that could be unbearable, and your energy can take some of that for them and process it with them. And now their life is bearable until they can process it themselves. The problem with the empath is sometimes that happens without our awareness or conscious knowledge, and then we're carrying a whole bunch of burdens from other people. So that's where you have to clear yourself, make sure you're breaking off those connections from others. But if you're using it in awareness, you can have those friends, you can have those buddies, you can have those groups. Like you offer a lot of groups, and we have a Life's Anonymous Battles group as well, which is an emotional support group where we're all helping process the emotions of other people who are having a really heavy time going through grief or loss or just frustration. And we don't have to carry all of those things alone. Like we're all interconnected as humans with nature. Nature is an empath. Nature is a natural filter that can help carry those burdens and filter them out for you. Your guides do this for you. You're never just out there alone. Everything that is life, everything that is nature is love and is bringing you back to love.
Nice. Back to your center. Nice. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much, Mary. You guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation, because I have. I feel lighter and brighter and clearer. And I just want to remind you, this is Mary with Earth and Star Wellness. And you can find her on YouTube. You can find her at earthandstarwellness.com. She has events. She has classes. I feel like you're going to have a lot more classes. I don't know. I'm just saying that feels like something that might be in the offing for things that she's going to be offering with her work. And yeah, and if you're new here, I'm Susan Lynn. So click subscribe, leave us your comments. We want to hear what you have to say. We covered so many topics. I hope it was helpful for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Mary, so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I love being here. It's always an honor. I super, super appreciate getting to be with you and seeing all of you guys.
Super awesome. Thanks, everybody. Take good care.